Okay, let's continue with our discussion and then we can take another question later. What is the minimum? Is there any requirement for L1A like H1B, like degree requirement or the experience apart from you said they have to be working with the same company in India, I mean, whatever the transfer. So is there any time limit that they have to work like 1 year or 2 years minimum, or, as soon as they join the company, they can come over here? Any such restriction?
Yeah, so you should have been working as an executive in the foreign company, which has a relationship with the US company. Remember, we talked about the relationships. And you have to be working there at least for 1 year before you can qualify for an L1. So you have to show 1 year that you work there, 365 days.
How about the requirements, like education requirement, like H1B? Do they need to have a 4-year bachelor degree?
So there is no educational requirement. It's not a specialty occupation. It's not about positions that require an advanced degree or a bachelor's degree. It's all about whether they have duties that are that of an executive or not. That is the main thing that is looked at here. And they look at the relationship to see if the relationship exists between the two companies, and they look at to see whether he previously also held an executive level position in the foreign company or not. Those are the only requirements.
Okay. Coming to the next question, unlike H1B, which the dependents of the H1B cannot work unless there is an I-140, is it the same case with L1, or the dependents can work?
So for the L2, unlike the H4 EAD, which came with a lot of controversy and prerequisites, when the L1 was instituted, then they also had work visa for L2s. So an L2 can file an EAD, is allowed to file EAD and work. So there's no such requirement that I-140 has to be approved, or no prerequisites. As long as the person is on a valid L2, they can file for an EAD and they can start working on an L2.
Okay, sounds good. So they can just file an L2 EAD without any I-140 or anything.
Correct.
Okay, another question here is, what is the process of getting green for them? I heard it's very easy, and as you also were saying, there is no need of any labor certification as well. They can directly file, I believe, I-140. Is there any requirement for that? Again, like as you said, like L1B doesn't have any, L1A doesn't have any requirements of education, you said. So is it same with the green card, and can you just walk through the process?
Yeah, so that's EB-1C. Basically, you're filing an EB-1 petition. So that's the big draw, right, for being on an L1 and then filing a green card based on that. So 1 year after you've been on an L1, if you're here in the country, you can apply for you can apply, sorry, for an I-140. There's no need to test the labor market, so there's no need to file a labor cert. And the other biggest advantage is you're not EB-2 or EB-3, but you're actually EB-1. It's a completely separate category, EB-1 multinational executives. So the only requirement is that they should have worked for a period of 1 year before they qualify for the EB-1. And you could show that you worked in the foreign company also for 1 year. It doesn't have to be in the US company, which means that you can come to the US directly on an EB-1. You don't have to actually come on a L1 and then work for 1 year in the US and then file for an EB-1. You can file directly also from abroad for EB-1. So that's the big draw for a lot of people who work as multinational executives. Unlike on a H1 where the EB-2 and EB-3 waits are several years, EB-1 is much, much, much better. And for other countries, it's immediate, it's current most of the time. So that's the big advantage of it. Again, the requirement is otherwise the same as an L1. You have to show that you have been working in an executive level position. You have to show, even for an L1, you have to show that you're supervising at least 2 other levels of people under you. For example, if you're a director, then maybe you are supervising a marketing person, and you are then there's another tier below that, which is marketing executives. you have to show that you're supervising 2 levels of professional positions, which means in simple language positions that require a bachelor's degree, right? So if you can show that, the 2 tiers, and if you can show that, for example, if you are joining a company, or rather you are coming to the US to join the branch, or if it's a branch office of a parent company, then, and they have no employees here at all. If it's a startup, it's fine. You can show a business plan. You can show that they intend to hire a manager, a HR person, an accounts person, even if it's a small company. And you can show that that intention is there, and you submit a business plan. That this is the plan for hiring personnel, and this is the plan for finances. So just because, so it doesn't, if it's a startup, you don't have to already have ready-made employees, but you can show that you intend to hire them. So that's another way of doing it. So it's important to show employees in an L1 position. So for example, there are many instances in which there are huge companies doing millions of dollars of business, especially the jewelry business, just to give you an example. But they don't hire many employees because it's a very close-knit, high-stake, and you have to have a lot of confidence in the person that you're hiring because it's all jewels and diamonds. So it's a high trust position, so they don't hire many people. So oftentimes they'll have net worth of millions of dollars, but they may have only 1 or 2 employees. And in that case, to file an L1 becomes difficult because you're not able to show that this person will supervise, 2 other levels of people. In that case, then you have to show that you cannot show the person is doing, then who picks up the phones, right? Who takes the calls, who takes messages. You cannot show that the executive person is doing executive work as well as clerical work. They have to be doing only executive work. So you have to show that someone is doing this, even if it's part-time. There is another person who's picking up the calls and who's, taking messages, making sales calls, etc., etc. And you can show, even if you're not able to show that the L1 employee is supervising 2 other levels of people, you should at least be able to show that it's a functional manager. There are 2 ways of doing it. And one is by proving that he's a functional manager, which means that he has specialized knowledge. And the duties he's performing are executive, but even though he's not supervising anybody, could be one way of showing it is that he's supervising people abroad, because nowadays with remote work, a lot of the functions are done outsourced. So you can even show that he's supervising someone outside the country, from the parent company, or you can show that he is a functional manager and his position and his duties are such that they cannot be performed by anyone else, because he has that unique knowledge of the product or processes of the company that other people don't have. So that's one way of overcoming that lack of employees, but it's hard, but it can be done. So yeah, I hope that answers.